Downtown Lebanon is once again a hot topic on the Love and Lebanon podcast. Jackie Swihart with Main Street America and Andrea Kern of OCRA spent a few days in town to perform some research and share their findings. We get their respective opinions on downtown Lebanon. Why are downtowns so important anyway? They've got the answer. Episode 118 starts now.
Welcome to the Love and Lebanon podcast, highlighting all the great things happening in Lebanon, Indiana. Have an idea for an episode? Send an email to loveandlebanon@lebanon.in.gov.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Love and Lebanon podcast. I'm Joe LePage, the Community Development Director. It is a treat to be able to talk downtown. We love our downtown here in Lebanon, and to downtown experts, both on a statewide level and national level as well. I said experts, ladies, so no pressure. No pressure at all. Joining us here on the podcast, we have Jackie Swihart. She is the Program Officer for Revitalization Services for Main Street America, and we have Andrea Kern. She is the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. I aspire, ladies, to have titles like yours.
No, you don't. It's a mouthful.
Well, thank you for being here. Not just today, but you both have spent some significant time in Lebanon over the past several days. Can you talk more about that here on the podcast as we kind of breathing a sigh of relief and exhaling after being here for a couple of days? Why are you here? And we appreciate it, but why? Jackie, why?
So at Main Street America, something we started doing actually back in 2013 was looking at how Main Street programs can be more strategic in the work that they do. Oftentimes, we're always reacting to the next thing that's popping up and, just thinking about how can we make sure all of our limited resources, our time, our money, our volunteers, all of it is put to the best use possible. And so we were here this week to work with Heart of Lebanon to really hone in on what is it that makes Lebanon unique. What are the assets here locally that maybe locals have a hard time seeing because they're so close to it and they're in it every day? But having that outside perspective come in and say, hey, have you ever noticed this or that? That's really what we're here to do. And so prior to our visit, we came and we didn't come, but we distributed a survey, and that went out for about 4 weeks or so, and we got almost 300 responses from the community, which is fantastic. And we got to hear a lot of their feedback about what they envision for downtown in the future, what they would like to see. And then we met with some stakeholders in the downtown and really asked them the same questions. What are your dreams, your hopes? What would you want the future to look like? And so we took all that information, paired it with market data, and then we were able to come up with recommendations for Heart of Lebanon to consider for how to move forward for the next 2 to 3 years. Andrea, what would you add to that?
The second day was more of a working day with the board to look at their work plan right now. And a work plan is a document that goes, every action that Heart of Lebanon does right now breaks it down into individual tasks. So we looked at that high level and the individual tasks in that work plan and saw how we could kind of tweak things to align with the strategy or what events or things need to go away. And then today, after we did that was a big day. And today we did our community exchange series, which Indiana Main Street puts on. It's kind of our core event training opportunity to get the 126 Main Street organizations from across the state. We host 4 of those throughout the year, and they all have to attend at least one of them. But they get to come and learn and network with one another. So Lebanon was chosen. It's an application process to be the place that we attended on Friday. So
Gotcha. Man, that sounds like a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of research, a lot of data, a lot of compiling of numbers, and then Friday was a long day for you. Can you kind of talk about and break down, if we can start to talk about strategic, the planning and the surveys that went out and the data that was collected, how transformational can that be to a community? I'm guessing it may be hard to kind of fathom because we're kind of partial to our main streets, but maybe how difficult is that to fathom initially? And it just seems like a lot of work that goes into that.
I think it is overwhelming at first. When you think about all the information that you're bringing together, you're trying to make sense of it all, seeing what those common themes are that stick out. And that's where I think the partnership between Indiana Main Street and Main Street America is so critical, because they bring us in to help with the capacity. And so being able to do all that ahead of this visit, to then share with the coordinating program at Indiana Main Street and the local program, and then for us all to reflect on it and say what feels right, what resonates, what do you see, what are things that are missing, and really getting that firsthand experience. That to me is how you make sense of it.
Is there ever like a light bulb moment where the board or the stakeholders or those that are deeply invested in a downtown get it, or where it's just like, okay, I get it now. Have you guys seen that?
That feels good when that happens.
It feels very good. And I think I was saying this to you, Andrea, that every one of these visits I do, it's challenging because when you come in, you have no idea what the final product is going to be. You have no idea what that recommendation is going to end up looking like, even though it's less than 24 hours away of giving it, because you have to have all those face-to-face meetings and interviews and get the information. But then every single time, you come up with this recommendation, you get a little butterfly in your stomach to present it, because what if they say no? I hate it.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. But then every single time, you'll see people take a moment and be like, okay, I think I get what you're saying. And then that evolves into, yeah, you know what? We are really fill in the blank, whatever that ends up being, that identity. And I think so many communities, rural especially, are having that struggle of identity and trying to figure out who are they. There's so much change happening, especially in this area of Indiana. And so figuring out where do we fit into all of that.
Andrea, have you saw, I'm guessing, over the course of the days that you were here and talking with the board and stakeholders and things, maybe different perceptions on downtown Lebanon, where one had kind of an idea of one way and other groups had others? Did you guys have that this time around?
I'd say a little bit, but most people were consistent. I think there is a true pride, a sense of pride in this community, which you can't buy. And I think that people see the good work that the organization is doing and want to continue that. Everybody was invested in giving feedback. That's a good thing. If they're giving feedback, they know that it's worth their time to show up, and people are going to take that feedback seriously and use it.
Everyone cares about the downtown. And
Yes.
everyone cares about the downtown for different reasons, because they're invested in the downtown in different ways. And so it's trying to find the commonalities, I think, between these various viewpoints of their place in downtown. And sometimes people disagree. And I think that's very okay. It's healthy. That's how we have discourse. And that's something we don't do enough anymore as a community, is engage in conversations that are hard, where people disagree. And for me, it's a really neat exercise to see that throughout the day, and having us there to facilitate that and help a community navigate those different opinions and then ultimately come to a consensus.
I think we gave them a little bit of a safe space, even if it's only an hour. They don't know us and they can say whatever they want. But then also, I think when we not push back on what they're saying, but offer a different perspective, I think it's good to hear those things from somebody they've never seen before.
Yes.
And you guys are polling a lot of the elected officials or the Heart of Lebanon board members or executive director out of the room. So they're,
It's fair game.
Yes.
But overwhelmingly, it's always usually positive. We make it very clear that we're not here to, talk about all the things that maybe aren't going the way they'd like it to. We're here to look at what's already working. What are those assets? How can we leverage them and build off of them? And so when you frame it in that positive light, it's a way to get everybody looking toward the same vision.
Friends, we're talking with Jackie Swihart. She's the program officer for Revitalization Services for Main Street America. And Andrea Kern, she is the director of strategic initiatives for the Office of Community and Rural Affairs here on the Love and Lebanon podcast. Success story time. There's a lot of work that goes into this, ladies, and this isn't your first rodeo, your first go-around. I'm guessing you've seen this process play out well in the past. You guys have seen some success of communities that maybe have gotten it together and had that light bulb, that switch that happen?
I think it's baked into the Main Street approach. It's truly can meet communities wherever they're at. It's a grassroots organization powered by volunteers. So you can have communities that are as small as maybe 300 people, and we have those in Indiana. They're a community of 300 people, and they organize around the community that they love. And it gives them a framework to say, we love our community, we want it to be better, or we want to see more things happening in downtown, and gives them a framework to make that happen. So it takes that vision and gives them actual actionable ways to make that happen.
Yeah, and the the great thing too, just to build off of that, is that the approach itself can be applied no matter where you are in the life cycle of your organization. If you're just starting out, it's a great basic framework to guide and organize. But then even as you become more mature as a Main Street program, I'm currently working with a few different communities, one in Walla Walla, Washington, and then some communities around the Detroit area where they've had programs that are really successful. They have done incredible work. They have the resources financially and human capacity, but now they just don't know what's next. And so using the framework through that lens and thinking about how do we elevate our work and think more about housing, childcare, the unhoused, substance abuse, like some of these really big issues. And it just really depends on where you are as an organization in terms of what you're going to tackle.
Indiana Main Street also has a levels system. So we implemented that in 2021. And it has an OCRA's downtown affiliate program, and that just kind of gets their feet wet with organization around the Main Street approach. And then we go up to like a state accredited where they don't necessarily have to have staff, but it's a really engaged board of directors. They're working all 4 of the Main Street points, which that's the foundation of the Main Street approach is our 4 points. And then our nationally accredited Main Streets, which Heart of Lebanon is a nationally accredited Main Street. And that's when they do have staff. And they also, not just having staff, but have some of those nonprofit best practices in place that we would expect of a high-functioning organization.
If someone's listening to this podcast and they're like, I get it. You know, you talked about the grassroots and volunteers, all that's great, whatever. Have you run into people that just don't kind of get what Main Street is all about? And how do you explain it to them to help them understand what, I hear the Main Street, sure, the national, whatever. Yeah, it sounds great, but it's not, I don't know if it's really needed. What do you say to them to maybe educate them on the process of what a downtown means to a community?
So
I threw it up in the middle for a reason.
I was like, I don't know who's gonna, yeah.
I always, a lot of times actually, when I'm presenting in front of a group, I'll show a picture of just a beautiful Main Street. You know, it's all the lights, the trees, the people walking, the businesses are open. And then, you know, ask people to imagine you've been somewhere, you have visited a community, someplace, small, big, doesn't matter. And you've walked in and you have just felt like, wow, this is amazing. And maybe you don't really know why in that moment, but you know it feels good to be there. And with Main Street, that is what we're trying to build. Because if you have that feeling of welcomeness and like you are meant to be there, you are welcomed there, that's what Main Street is doing. And we're doing that through the 4 points, looking at design and streetscape and historic preservation and just the built environment. And then we're thinking about promotion and promoting our downtown as a place of activity. Economic vitality, you know, downtown is nothing without our small businesses. And so always thinking about how can we support them in the work that they're doing because they're the lifeblood of downtown. And then organization, getting the people together and making it all happen. And so, yeah, it's tough to explain Main Street sometimes because it is so many different things, but you need all those pieces to be truly successful.
Have you run into that before, Andrea, where someone hasn't really understood the whole significance of a Main Street organization and having those building blocks that OCRA and you know, Main Street America provide?
We in this field, we doing this work every single day, we get it. And to have to remind ourselves to take that, to pull out of that and pull back and remember that, you know, most folks in our community, they're just going by day to day, doing their normal business, coming downtown maybe to pay a bill, pick something up. And so it's really our job as a Main Street organization to tell the story and explain why this is important. And it really comes down to quality of life. And there's plenty of research out there that shows that the more of a community that you have, the happier people are going to be. And that's, I think, its own epidemic in its own way right now, is this idea of unhappiness and loneliness and people moving out of rural communities or even out of big communities now since COVID happened. And I think building a place that people want to be, that people want to spend time in, that is going to bring community together, and it's going to facilitate the opportunity to have conversations with one another and to contribute to something that they're a part of.
I've always heard downtowns are kind of your barometer for where a community is. So
Yes.
if your downtown is is a dump, it kind of has that perception for the whole community. There's that ripple effect. And conversely, if it's well put together, if it gives you those warm and fuzzies, then you kind of get that community wide, and that can have a positive ripple effect. Have you guys heard things along those lines too?
I think too, like a lot of the times people are wondering, well, we're not in the downtown, and you don't work with us the same way that you do your downtown businesses or whatever that may look like. And that might be true, but it's also that education piece about how and why the stronger your downtown core is, the stronger everything else is around it. And it is that ripple effect, just like you were saying, is you may not be on the square in Lebanon, but if you're 2 blocks away, the more people who come to the square, they're going to either walk past, drive past your business to get there, or on their way out, they're going to see it. And the more it's like the velocity of pulling people into that core and having those opportunities and experiences, it's only going to benefit the entire region and community.
I'm guessing you have seen that success. So we kind of in the part A of our conversation, everybody, we've been talking about the strategery, as they would say in the Saturday Night Live skit, the strategic development of the Heart of Lebanon specifically. But as we wrap up things here on Friday, when we're recording here on this episode of the Lebanon podcast, just wrapped up a community exchange, folks from all over the state converging on Lebanon, Indiana to do what, Andrea?
So our community exchange series is an opportunity to meet with one another, and I think Main Street is built on the network and the support of the network. So it's an opportunity to meet your neighbors, even if they're all over the state. So this one's nice because it's central. So we get a poll from the south and a poll from the north, and they maybe have never met each other before, but we bring them together and around a certain topic. Today was about volunteerism and some building research, which was really exciting, and the facade grant program that you run here, just giving people ideas, an opportunity to learn from one another, and also to have fellowship with one another. So doing lunch together, we had a nice event last night, just got to see the inside of the...
You guys went up in the dome.
Yes.
How cool was that?
It was really cool. Yes. I haven't even been inside the county that I'm from dome. So that was like...
Yeah, this is VIP.
Very, very cool. So...
Yeah, I wanted to build off of that because the network, I think not only in Indiana, that's what sets Indiana Main Street apart, but I think the entire movement. This really is a movement in that we are all learning from each other. We love to R&D, which is rip off and duplicate. And so that's what Main Street is all about. It's connection. It's understanding, each other's languages and being able to just share the positives and the frustrations and have people truly understand that, and having access to resources and help and support from the state level and the national level and the local level. It all just works in cohesion.
You're not alone in the work. I think that's really, and especially, when we get to the more sophisticated Main Street organizations, when they have staff, it's oftentimes one person and they're working alone in their office. A lot of that work feels pretty lonely. And so this gives them an opportunity to meet other executive directors, and, they can complain about their board members or their,
there's always at least
their
one.
mayor, to somebody that's really neutral.
Yeah.
So got to ask, to be honest, that you can just pretend like I'm not in the room and there won't be millions of listeners here on this podcast. Downtown Lebanon, your thoughts? You can positive, negative.
We did tell today the parks, yes, that manages all of the grass. Cleanest downtown. I've been in a lot of downtowns in Indiana.
You got to do that with John Messenger in the room, our parks director.
He was he took it as a great compliment, I think. But yes, cleanest downtown I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was like we were here for 10 minutes and Andrea goes, look at the grass.
Yeah, and now we just keep pointing it out.
Yeah, you can't unsee how perfect it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, first impressions, very clean. I have never been to Lebanon, and I live in Indianapolis, and it has somehow always felt further away than it actually is. So now I know it's not far.
It's not far.
And I also did not realize how beautiful the square is. The streetscape, I mean, the way in which you have designed it with people first in mind, that's an example that I'm going to take with me into communities that I visit all across the country.
Yes.
You have so many safety mechanisms in place. You can clearly tell what's a pedestrian area and what's an area for vehicles. And just those visual cues help so much in navigating a downtown safely. And that's something we don't always think about. So beautiful square, beautiful courthouse, really good food.
Yes, we've
We
eaten
not
everywhere.
eat. We
Yeah.
eat well here in
Yeah.
Lebanon, I'm telling you.
Very good food.
I think one piece of the streetscape that I particularly love is in most places it was curbless. So, for pedestrians when they're on the sidewalk, it just takes it's a barrier you would never notice until you've felt what it's like to not have a curb between, the cars and the sidewalk. And it makes it just feel very open and as well as safe too.
And the ability to repurpose your downtown square as needed. So the ability to move things and have a market, have a band set up. It really is this idea that, sure, maybe sometimes cars will drive through here, cars might park here, but this space is made for the people who live here to enjoy with their families, with their friends, to come on down, feel safe, and have a really good time. That's what it's all about.
And it's been an education piece because, as you may understand, that putting the roads, the streets downtown on a road diet to make them more narrow so cars slow down so they're not going as fast, bearing down on pedestrians. I could sarcastically say that 100% of everybody's on board with it. It's been great, but it just kind of helping everyone understand it, that the large circular planting beds are for you to take nice, long, wide, slow turns. And so it's better for pedestrians if you have young kids and kids do what kids do and all those things. It's been an education piece, but I'm glad you guys noticed the curbless and all the...
It's really nice.
Yeah, and I think I was in Huntingburg, Indiana a few weeks ago, and
great downtown.
Great downtown, similar in that it's very pedestrian friendly, curbless. And I know, they had some challenges too, educating. And the truth is, change is hard. People get used to what they know. And we are a very car-centric society in general. And so the idea that it's going to be a little more challenging to drive your car downtown is hard at first. But then once you experience it and all the benefits and the safety and just the beauty, if nothing else, you really take it in, and it's life-changing for a community.
Yeah, as an outsider, I did feel very safe walking around, and we walked around a lot the last 3 days.
Yeah, you guys got the steps in.
Yes,
I don't
we
know if you have a
did.
ped counter, but you're up there. Folks, we're talking with Jackie and Andrea. They are from Main Street America and OCRA, respectively. Now, as we kind of take the final lap, as I said, if success stories, you've been here in Lebanon, we're so thankful that you've invested so much time and partaken of the local fair downtown. Success stories you've seen along the way working on this process of building the building blocks. We talked about the 4 pillars of Indiana Main Street. And success stories you guys have seen over the years, ones that stick out?
It's really common for an organization to want to do something, and then they start on this track of becoming a main street, and then maybe it doesn't take. And it can take, in some communities, a couple tries at forming a group before it takes roots in a community.
Why is that? Not to interrupt, but why is that to drive that home? Why is it important to... And why?
To create roots. I think it can happen for a lot of different reasons. It can be political. It can be just, people turn over or somebody moves out of the community, and maybe that was the person who was, the connective tissue in that organization. But our goal at Indiana Main Street is to give these organizations enough technical assistance and support that they don't fall apart, and that if that's something that's maybe potentially on the horizon for them, that we give them a lot of resources and our time to support them if that's what they want. If they want to continue the organization and find different ways to bring new people in. Yeah, so it can happen for a lot of different reasons. But once the organization has taken root, like I've seen a lot of communities where the Main Street organization is just as central of a nonprofit organization in the community as, name anything like United Way, the Community Foundation. It can be an organization that is not going to go away, I guess. And so a good example of a community that had tried a couple times before it took was Heart of Jasper. And they started in 2019 with Indiana Main Street again. And Main Street America came in and helped them with some basically organizing around the 4 points and the transformation strategy workshop. And now they are, a very high functioning board. They took advantage of the support that we offer, the technical assistance that we offer, and their neighbors too. So other organizations in kind of the state to say, how did you do this? How can we make this better? And now it's a really they're about to do a big streetscape project, and really proud of the work that they've done down there.
Yeah, I think a big part of it too is not just the momentum and the initial motivation. I think that's where people get lost sometimes as well, is that it takes more than just caring a lot. That is fundamental, but we also need to put things into action. And I see where a lot of Main Street programs are maybe just getting started, or they've lost track, and they need to remember the why, but also the how. And so that's a big piece there. And yeah, Jasper, I worked with them a bit as they were coming back. And just to say, Heart of Lebanon existed before Heart of Jasper, but not all Main Street programs are called that.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, they're a great example, and they just keep pushing forward. And I think one of the biggest differences maybe too from their earlier tries is they do have paid staff now. And while paid staff isn't everything, it is that person who can really help to just keep things moving. It's like a conductor for an orchestra. They're not playing the instruments, but they're just making sure everyone's in unity.
We see a big shift in organizations when they decide to commit to having a paid staff person. You kind of become a more professional organization and can do just a lot more when you have that paid staff, somebody who's committed to the work.
And that's where that broad-based community support is so critical, by having other stakeholders in the downtown, like the city, invest in a Main Street program to do things like be able to hire staff. That's really instrumental in terms of starting a Main Street organization, but also sustaining it. And so it really is a partnership within the community. Like Andrea said, it's Main Street, we are economic drivers, and we are just another seat at that table and hoping to work with everybody.
Great perspective. If someone's listening to this podcast and we're winning them over on the side of pro Indiana Main Street, and they want now to become an advocate or look into advocacy in their respective communities, if they're not from Lebanon here listening to the pod, what can they do to be able to kind of get on board and jump in with their Main Street, or looking to create one of their own in their own communities? It's not impossible, but it's not easy at the same time. I think it's by design that the state does that, where if you're going to do it, you've got to put some sweat equity in there and have others like-minded that want to do the same thing. But if someone's listening and man, I want to get involved, what's the best way for them to plug in here, there, wherever?
So if you're listening in Indiana, but this is not just an Indiana movement. This is obviously Jackie's from Main Street America.
You mentioned Walla Walla. I get to say
Walla Walla. Yeah, it's a fun one.
But if you're in Indiana, our agency has 6 community liaisons throughout the state, and they live in the districts that they serve. So that would be a great place if you go to like indiana.gov/OCRA, and the community liaison, find them, contact them, and just start to have that conversation. They love to just meet with individuals to hear more about the programs and services that we offer. And then we also offer Main Street 101s, where you can come and listen and talk to us about what Main Street exactly is.
And then on a national level, if they want to step up their game a bit and become accredited on a national scale, like as you guys mentioned, the Heart of Lebanon now is, things that they can do, and a lot of advantages there too as well.
Yeah, and I to Andrea's point about this being a national movement, we do have coordinating programs like Indiana Main Street all across the country. And so if you are listening from outside of the state, chances are that there is a Main Street network within wherever you are as well. And so, if you're just wanting to get to know what Main Street does a little bit more, you can always check out our website at mainstreet.org, but also reach out to your local community, see if there's a Main Street program in place. Maybe you can volunteer, get to know them a bit, see where you can help out. Maybe you can be an advocate for them with city government and funding, because that is often a challenge, is just telling the story, making sure people understand the importance and how this really benefits everybody. It's not a membership organization in the sense that Main Street does something in exchange for something else. We are really all in this together as a community, working for the betterment of downtown. So getting involved at the local level, thinking about how to organize and getting the right people in place to start a new Main Street, that's really critical. Getting the right folks in place from the beginning, setting a standard of this is a professional business. We need to create policies, procedures, just like any other organization would, and really treat it like a professional organization. And just keep in mind that what you are building now, you're really hoping to see it last 10, 20, 50 years from now. And so we're always thinking about how Main Street is incremental.
And since we're in Lebanon, a big plug for the reason we had the community exchange in Lebanon was, and we chose this specifically for volunteerism, is because the Heart of Lebanon does a really nice job with recognizing their volunteers and just feel that they are, at the cream of the crop for volunteer appreciation, retention efforts. And so if you're interested in just getting to know more about the community, finding the team at Heart of Lebanon is really excellent. And
yeah, and there's so many different opportunities to get involved too. If you don't have a lot of time to commit, maybe just help out with an event. If you want to get a little bit more involved, join a committee. As a committee member, you can really move forward projects and own projects and be a thought leader for that organization without the commitment of, say, being a board member or paid staff. And so just know that there are lots of different levels and avenues of entry, and that's what makes Main Street really cool, is there's something for everybody.
And you really touted the advocacy of not only the executive director here, Missy, but also our mayor and lieutenant governor also are tremendous advocates for the program here on a macro level and spreading out as well.
We need those champions.
Absolutely. They're vital. And we need you as well, and so there's some contact info everybody, so you can get on and find out more information about Main Street America or OCRA or the Heart of Lebanon as well. Jackie, Andrea, thanks for being here right before you're ready to get out of town after spending some time.
I do plan on coming back.
Yes.
I would love to.
I can't wait.
The City Market sounds incredible. We love to go to those in the area, and so really excited to come back.
And thanks for being on the podcast. Hopefully you'll check out the pod and maybe come back, be repeat customers.
We're big
here.
Lebanon fans now.
Yes. We are as well. And we hope you are too, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of our podcast. More episodes are ahead. Take care.